Alright, I'm just gonna say it, I'm mad. This video I'm gonna call The History of Cat Piss. The history of cats, the history of cool cats. I'm mad, and what's worse is that I'm mad that I'm mad. I was way madder yesterday. Thank God I didn't make a recording. It would have been off the charts. I get mad. It's kind of like in Saving Private Ryan, when Tom Hanks says that, like, you give orders down and you complain up. So basically, you know, if you're someone who believes in clairvoyance and prophets, talking to yourself really becomes a way of, you know, it's kind of like Clubhouse to the prophets. Like if you're just yelling by yourself in your apartment at what some might consider like schizophrenic, disembodied othernesses, what some people might consider castigating the gods. But for me, yelling at the prophets, and it is worth noting that not all prophets are the same. So one might say yelling at your ceiling and walls in your apartment when you're alone is screaming to the prophetic false prophets. False prophets are still prophetic. Unfortunately, we might also be yelling at the real ones. But yeah, getting mad, complaining up, trying not to complain down, right? But like in this effort to be honest, right? I have to admit, like, I'm mad. I'm super duper mad. And it's hard to parse apart that madness when you're not what some might call enlightened, what some might call having reached gnosis, what some might call reconciled, what some might call resurrected, what some might call having broken the cycle of reincarnation. Are there subtle differences? I don't know. We try to find them where we can, the subtle differences. But the stark differences aren't even resolved. So we have to deal with those. I'm mad. And to some extent, like, we shouldn't discount our madness, but our own madness is used against us in so many ways. Not the least of which physiologically. But like, to be mad. Well, even just talking now, I'm less mad than I was when I started, and I was kind of mad all day, and yesterday I was like fuming. Take what about Bob Tourette's syndrome and multiply it by Henry Rollins, and you're creeping up on it. The history of cats. I'm mad at the butchery of the world. I'm mad at the. We could consider, you know, not that, I mean, these terms could be used in different ways, but we could consider human butchery versus the animal kingdom, or quote-unquote natural butchery, though there's nothing natural about it. It's the accumulation of free will, the accumulated error of free will. Free will is the am I? Predestiny is the I am. I am precedes the am I. So is what could be called the world, what could be called the universe, what could be called the cosmos. They could be considered different things, but they're also they share a geometry. As the omega gets larger, the I am and the am I proportionally become closer, even though the gap between them becomes greater. One would wonder if there's a mathematics where they meet. The infinity of infinities, right? But the world, and so people talk a lot about the New World Order. And here I would like to refer to Dave Mustaine. If there's a new way, I'll be the first in line. But it better work this time. Peace, peace sells. Peace, peace sells. Why would we not want a new world order? There are many possible new world orders. Why would we not want a new one? But it could take many forms. And the new world, I mean, there's a new world order in the midst of coming, obviously. And we're in the midst of this great shakedown. And what will come will either be an enhancement of what didn't work, which means a dark age to trump all dark ages that we know of. Still probably better than being a brontosaurus burger in the midst of the reign of Tyrannosaurus King, but the other kind would be something that maybe makes a little more sense. In one sense, like, I used to be a little bit more into heavy metal, death metal. I never liked black metal. I had a friend who basically was like the most awesome death metal, like thrashy death metal drummer I ever heard. And we used to hang out a lot. And then he was in a black metal band, which I liked, but his death metal and thrash, like bands or drumming, were way better, you know. And pretty much anything I know about metal post Megadeth came from him. So I don't know, like, he knows, you know, this dude knows the taxonomy of metal genre the way that Brett Weinstein knows the taxonomy of I don't even know what it would be called, the evolutionary tree. I don't know, but, and I'm not like that, but I know when I know what I like. I like Cattle Decapitation, the band. I kind of like Pig Destroyer. Depending on the day, I might like 6 Feet Under, and I might like Skinless. But it really depends on the day. Most days, I like Cannibal Corpse the best. I mean, they're the best, you know. But what I like the best every day is Decapitated. And it's, I don't know why, but it's been very difficult to find on YouTube the video for, or the song Human's Dust off the album that it came from. song Human's Dust by Decapitated. One of my favorite heavy songs ever. So even though I don't know a lot, like, I think I have pretty good taste. I don't mind saying. And in the Megadeth versus Metallica deal, like I come down heavy and hard on the Megadeth side. Even though like the Megadeth hierarchy of awesome songs is like it's a steep mountain, but it rises high. But there's also a great amount of diversity. I mean, and that's just, what's that matter for, you know? But anyway, the whole deal with the metal stuff, and especially even like the really repugnant, like terrible, awful, like horrible, you know, what a lot of people would consider horrible, like satanic death metal and all that kind of stuff. Or you know, even Slayer. Never got, you know, I like Slayer well enough, I can appreciate Slayer. And I'm almost tempted to say I like Slayer only because Mike Patton said that he doesn't trust anybody who doesn't like Slayer, you know? And I love Mike Patton. I'm a little bit of a Mike Patton fanboy. I used to be a big one, you know? Okay, well, I admit it. Alright, okay. But even though he said that, I cannot acquiesce. I don't really like Slayer. I have a great appreciation for their talent. I love the chops. But the songs in their entirety, and I won't discuss I won't specifically identify the musical component that I find most distasteful in Slayer. But if you're of my ilk, you'll know what I'm talking about immediately. Because everything fits, except, please forgive me, one thing. And maybe that's just the magic of the music that I've yet to discover. That's possible. And who am I to say such things, making such musical atrocities as I do, in a less talented way? So, I'll admit that. No problem. And if Tom Araya don't like me, hey, I don't blame him one bit. I barely like me. I only like me well enough to stay alive, which has to do with being mad. Suicidal tendencies, right? But lately, I've pretty well decided that what will save the world is Christian vegans. The time is right for the apocalypse of Christian vegans. But just today I realized also that anger, because it's really, see, a lot of people would oppose like maybe certain types of like vegan Christians, or just people might often say like a death metal, you know, quote unquote satanic pentagram death metal head, a metalhead, a death metal head might be opposed to like this peaches and cream Christian, right? So people might oppose those two things, and you might fall on one side or the other in opposition. What I'm saying is that those two things are actually that they're adjoined at poles of the truth, which both are united and oppose the true evil. To have that fruit and honey impression of the world, of the creation, and at the same time to have that bleak, black blood, horror, are part of the same object. And that object stands in opposition to the lie. Unfortunately, I don't understand either side super well, but I understand both sides well enough to know they are both engaged with not just the pursuit of the truth, but the truth. Their vectors may be disdirected, but they, a linear tangent to a sphere. A linear tangent to a sphere can point in infinite directions on a disk or on a plane, but its perpendicular is always the same. Always. And what I'm saying is these two groups, the vegan Christians, and not just vegan Christians, if you're a vegan Jew, mission accomplished. Jesus is like, you're cool. I mean, and I'm not speaking on his behalf, I'm speaking very much symbolically there, though I don't just mean things symbolically, but if you're a meat eating Christian, why did Jesus, okay, believe him, don't believe in him, believe in the story, think it's symbolic, think it's this, think it's that, whatever you think about it. Or if you're an atheist or whatever, like whatever your gig is. The truth is, alright, so a lot of environmentalists are atheists, right? That's what they say. One of the most environmentally destructive parts of the world is raising meat. The 10 to 1. The 10 to 1. Look it up. 10 to 1, meat to vegetable, vegan, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's a fact. And the truth. And then on the other side, why did Jesus die for your sins? Every Christian, there's 30,000 different registered denominations, I believe, in the United States. Probably like 29,000 of them are like, just like tax evasion fucks, who create a church out of their like 13 kid family and like, they're all inbreeding like a motherfucker. But then there's the other, 1,000 denominations that we may or may not be familiar with. But the one thing everybody can agree on is Jesus died for my sins, right? Why? So you wouldn't... What did people do before Jesus died for your sins? They killed something. They put their sins on something and killed it. That's what the Aztec did. That's why he died on the cross. And you're saying to yourself, but I don't participate in ritual sacrifice of the animals. I just eat them as food. It's completely objective. But to the Christians, I would say, you say a prayer over your dead animal on your plate before you eat it. Do you bless your food before you eat that carcass? Well, there you go. If it wasn't an animal sacrifice, right? Like people who don't bless their hamburger before they eat it are actually more Christian than a Christian who blesses their rare steak before they eat it. Why? Because if you call yourself a Christian and you pray over your dead animal sacrifice, if it was just objective before you prayed for it, if it was just an automaton, if it was just that before you prayed over it, once you pray over it, it's a ritual sacrifice. You pray before every dinner, that's a ritual. You eating something dead that was slaughtered, that's a sacrifice. Why did Jesus die for your sins? So that you wouldn't sacrifice animals anymore. You're going to pray for your food? You're going to thank God? Yep. So you're kind of not allowed to thank God for that big old fat piece of fucking shank. Just saying. I don't mean nothing by it. Except for that's the apocalypse. That's the good word. That's the good news. That's how clever the devil, so to speak. I know there's daimon, there's this word, there's that word, there's this word, there's that word. The only person who ever really, besides the Greeks and the Greek gods and the fucking Hindu and the Hindu gods and all that, but if you really want to get a feel for it in a way that makes your skin fucking tingle, and it's probably more real than anything that's out there that I've seen, is Castaneda. And the way he describes the allies is very closely related to daimons, but daimons, gods, Elohim, all the different gods, all the different specific gods, all the groups, all the associations, it's all mixed up. And it's transliterated and it's transcribed and it's translated from language to language, mostly among people who don't know. And there's very few who do. But even though some of those who do know don't necessarily get the language right. So it takes a little while to kind of parse through words and think, well, what does this person mean? What does that person mean? And that's the appeal, to a large degree, of death metal. It's just people who are so hurt by the viciousness of the world that they are magnetically, irresistibly drawn to violent, angry music. But it's art. 999 out of 1,000 people who love metal aren't involved in anything like even so simple as killing a baby chicken, which you still shouldn't do. But and then when they say, well, the Gnostics thought the Creator, there was no Gnostics. There's that quote in the Bible, like, what is it? My people perish for lack of knowledge, gnosis. And people say, oh, pagans this, Christians this, Gnostics this, when 1 out of 1,000 Gnostics got it. And 1 out of 1,000 Christians got it. 1 out of 1,000 Jews got it. So in this small group, There are 3 out of 3,000 who get it. And that's the conspiracy of conspiracies. Is how these 3 people are going to leverage their knowledge that they share, that everyone else thinks is different. And it's not just saying that, like, it's different than saying, you know, cross-cultural, religious, this, that, whatever. It's different. It's different than that. But anyway, we should be mad. And it depends what we mean by world. When they say the Gnostics thought that the creator of this world was evil. It depends what we mean by world. World doesn't mean earth. World doesn't mean existence. World means the predominant perceptual collective
do it.
The collective knowledge and the collective error of free will as it casts its shadow and its prismatic hues upon the collective experience at an individual level that distorts the purity of the true light. That might be one way of thinking about it. The world is a filter. That's why Castaneda, Juan Matus, talked about stopping the world.
Is he really?
Killing the parasite. Stopping speech in the mind. A real thing, a thought form. Which, in this world as we know it, may just live energetically or as a shape of electrical impulses within the neural network. We could almost think of like the brain as like because there's a plasma television or an LCD or whatever, a digitized television. And the way that it fires creates the movement of pictures. Well, we could think of our brain or our entire body, because the neural network stretches throughout our body, specifically more so in the gut, but the brain, the gut. But we can consider that 3-dimensional wet crystal, that wet electromagnetic crystal, which is our brain, our gut, our neural network, never mind our dark matter, dark energy, aura, as it's suspended by superluminal objects such as neutrinos. Just a way of thinking. I'm mostly speaking metaphorically there, but it all kind of works, right? A little bit. So we can think of these lesser daimonic, what I call second order. Second order daimons would be under first order daimons. And third order daimons to my mind, there are first order daimons. To my mind, second order daimons are always bad. To my mind, third order daimons may be bad or good. First order daimons are good. Second order daimons are bad. Third order daimons may be one or the other, because they deal with the interference patterns which align with either first or second order daimons. I'm still working on it. But we could consider thought forms, nefarious parasitic thought forms, as being objects of a different space, but I don't like the multiverse theory at all. But I do like the idea of either an antimatter or a dark energy, dark matter universe kind of superimposed over this one, where there might be a couple few universes that are part of the same cosmos, and they're superimposed and they interact pretty much directly. And we can consider these forms as existing in this world as specific patterns of coordinated firings. And you could basically think of that as like a three-dimensional, a cubic array of pixels instead of being a two-dimensional array of pixels. And the field of that array is filled by a form. We do it with numbers on a two-dimensional screen if we're doing some kind of CGI thing depicting a three-dimensional form. Meanwhile, in the three-dimensional array of the neural network of our mind, these actual living forms, these second-order daimons, these sea anemones of thought occupy our mind, potentially, not from a different multiverse dimension, but from the same unified cosmos in dark matter. Not that that is the nature of dark matter, because there would be first-order daimons who do the same thing. But the second-order daimons would have to do with a perturbation of free will, which is the am I succeeding the I am, running out of control, hemorrhaging in space and time. So anyway, the other thing, and I'm speaking very much parochially, provincially. I'm speaking very much from my closed man cave that I look about upon the world from. So there are others too. I've always believed in the connection between, I never liked hardcore metal, never really liked black metal, but I like death metal. And same with I kind of like the whole hip-hop philosophy, but I don't really like a lot of other rap genres and philosophy, but the whole gig with the old school hip-hop and but not the old school death metal, but death metal. I like death metal kind of at its inception. So there's a little bit of a gap there, or discontinuity, but like I said, I mostly don't know what I'm talking about anything, but it's okay to be mad for the right reason, but the aim of a true anger is to render itself obsolete. And unfortunately, anger is so often associated with hatefulness. And that's the way we're raised. We're raised to associate anger with hatefulness. And trying to reestablish the true connection of anger, I don't want to call it justified anger, but a reasonable anger. Reconnecting that with love. I mean, that's a major project, but yet it's not, because it makes complete sense. And in that way, there is this, well, I shouldn't say that, because there's some pretty fucking killer Christian death metal. I guess in a lot of ways they've made the connection, but yet I don't know if it really reaches, you know. Well, it reached me, so that ain't nothing. As dumb as I am, I still matter so much as we all matter. So, what is it? Dead, nailed, risen. It's a fucking awesome song. Coming up on Easter too. Is it dead, nailed, risen? I'll have to look it up. Anyway, I'm really angry. I was yelling at every prophet known to creation, and those may be known to eternity alone. But I can't just hate my anger, and I can't just be, because the worst part of being angry is getting mad that you're angry. That's even worse. Or like being disappointed and then being disappointed that you're disappointed, or getting sad and feeling sad that you're sad. So I don't want to be mad that I was mad, and I don't want to fear the repercussions of my anger. My anger was misdirected. Mostly. Maybe there was a smidgen of truth in it. So I have a lot of work to do in identifying the power of anger. And when people say about different types of meditation or bliss or this or that, like there's a degree of truth to that, for sure. But there ain't no fucking way the I am, if the highest principle of the God of gods, if the Holy Ghost knows all things, or all things that can be known, are there things that can't be known? Sure. Higher orders. That cannot be known until that order is reached. You know? But to think that the thing which knows all things doesn't know better than everything else, disappointment, anger, frustration. I don't want to say vengefulness. But that highest thing would have had to have overcome the greatest vengefulness in order to become what it is. I am that I am. And that I am will always be just that. But the that can be bigger. More of us can participate in the that of the I am. So let's do it. I just wanted to vent, change the tone. Have a good day.